Good morning and welcome to Virtual School Bahamas, powered by the Ministry of Education. Please be reminded that lessons are recorded and can be viewed on our website. In addition, all questions must be placed in the Q&A chat. All questions must be of an educational content. Moreover, resources can be retrieved from the website, inclusive of past papers and worksheets. As usual, sit back, relax, and learn. In previous lessons, we looked at adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions. Today, we will be looking at dividing fractions. I want you to exercise or implement prior knowledge in working with me today. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the steps involved in dividing fractions. Also, simplify these fractions. I just want to recap from previous lesson, multiplying fractions. I'm going to put up a question and I want you to attempt with prior knowledge. If you can see the screen, I have up the fractions 2/3 times 2/4. So it's 2/3 of 2/4. Remember the rules for multiplying fractions. Okay, so we have, and remember, you're going to multiply your tops together and you're going to multiply your bottoms together. So 2 times 2 is 4 and 3 times 4 is 12. Secondly, we have 2 1/5 multiplied by 2 1/3. Again, remember the rules for multiplying fractions. Good. Remember that when you are multiplying fractions where you have a whole number attached, it's called a mixed fraction. What you want to do with your mixed fraction in the first case is you want to multiply your whole number by your denominator. Okay, so you want to multiply the whole number, or the whole numbers rather, by the denominator and add the numerator. In this case, we have 2 1/5, so we're going to go ahead and multiply 2 times 5, giving us 10, and 1 being 11 over, and again, you want to keep your denominator. You want to take over the denominator. The second part of the fraction, 2 1/3. Again, you want to multiply the whole number by the denominator and add the numerator. In this case, you have 2 times 3 is 6, and 1 is 7 over. Good job. You want to keep the denominator. In this case, it's 3. So I want you to look at the answers again. Okay. Moving right along. What does 3 divided by 1/2 actually mean? Does anybody know? It means how many halves do we need to make 3 wholes? How many halves do we need to make 3 wholes? 2 halves equal 1 whole. 4 halves equal 2 wholes. 6 halves equals 3 wholes. So 3 divided by 1/2 equals 6. What does 5 divided by 1/2 actually mean? It means how many halves do we need to make 5 wholes? Again, 2 halves equal 1 whole. 4 halves equal 2 wholes. 6 halves equals 3 wholes. 8 halves equals 4 wholes. And 10 halves equal 5 wholes. So 5 divided by 1/2 equals 10. What do you notice here? I'm going to give you 1 minute to look at it and tell me if you see a trend. Okay? Dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. Good job. So 12 divided by 1/2 equals 24. And 55 divided by 1/2 equals, yes, 110. I want to show you a short clip before we get into the meat of our lesson today. So sit back and pay close attention to what is being said.
Hi, and welcome to Math Antics. This video is all about dividing fractions. But in order to understand how dividing fractions works, we first need to learn about something called reciprocals. A reciprocal is just a fancy math term for what you get when you switch the top and bottom numbers of a fraction. For example, if you have the fraction 1/2 and then switch the top and bottom numbers, you'll end up with 2/1. 2/1 is the reciprocal of 1/2. And 1/2 is the reciprocal of 2/1. And an interesting thing about reciprocals is multiplying a fraction by its own reciprocal will always give you 1. That's because you'll have the same multiplication problem on the top and bottom, so you'll end up with a whole fraction, which is always 1. Okay, that's nice. But what do reciprocals have to do with dividing fractions? Well, reciprocals let us do a really cool trick that makes dividing fractions easy. Whenever you have to divide something by a fraction, you can just multiply it by the reciprocal of that fraction instead, and you'll get the correct answer. And that's great news because multiplying fractions is so simple. This trick of multiplying by the reciprocal works because fractions are really just mini division problems. So when you multiply something by 1/2, it's the same as dividing by 2 since 2 is below the fraction's division line. And dividing by 2 is the same as dividing by 2/1 because you can turn any number into a fraction by just writing a 1 as the bottom number, right? But look, reciprocals. That's why multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2/1. And it's true the other way around, too. So really, it's kind of like you never have to divide fractions. You can just rewrite your division problems so that you're multiplying by the reciprocal instead. Then when you multiply, you'll get the answer for the original division problem. As always, let's see a couple examples of how this works so you'll really understand. Let's try this problem. 3/4 divided by 2/7. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is rewrite our problem. Instead of dividing by 2/7, we can multiply by the reciprocal instead. The reciprocal of 2/7 is 7/2. So our problem becomes 3/4 times 7/2. Oh, I should mention a mistake that a lot of students make when they first learn to divide fractions. Sometimes students take the reciprocal of the first fraction, the one that's being divided, or even the reciprocal of both fractions. But you only want to take the reciprocal of the second fraction, the one you're dividing by. Okay, now that our problem has been changed to multiplication, it's easy. Just multiply the tops, 3 times 7 equals 21, and multiply the bottoms. 4 times 2, and we have the answer to our fraction division problem. So 3 over 4 divided by 2 over 7 is 21 over 8. So that's pretty easy, but let's try one more example. Let's try 15 over 16 divided by 9 over 22. Again, the first thing we want to do is rewrite our problem. We'll change the divided by 9 over 22 into times 22 over 9. Now all we have to do is multiply. But since these numbers are kind of big, I'm going to use my calculator to help. Let's see here. So we have, all right. On the top, we have 15 times 22 equals 330. And on the bottom, we have 16 times 9 equals 144. So the answer to our division problem is 330 over 144. Of course, that could be simplified for your final answer on a test, but we cover simplifying fractions in another video. All right, that's how you divide fractions. You just multiply by the reciprocal and you have your answer. But there's one more thing I want to show you. You already know that the line between the top and bottom number of a fraction is just another form of the division symbol. Well, that means you'll sometimes see fraction division problems written like this. This shows the top fraction, 2 over 3, being divided by the bottom fraction, 4 over 5. It's really just that we have a fraction made up from other fractions. The top number is a fraction, and the bottom number is a fraction. It just looks a little confusing because we have all these fraction lines here. But we can make it look a lot better. Let's rewrite this as a multiplication problem by taking the reciprocal of the bottom number, the fraction that we're dividing by, and multiplying it by the fraction on top. There! That looks easier to do, and it's really the same problem. We just need to multiply to get the answer. So 2 times 5 equals 10, and 3 times 4 equals 12. Okay, so there you have it. What sounded really hard turns out to be as easy as flipping fractions upside down. If you can multiply fractions, then you can divide fractions too. Don't forget to practice what you've learned by doing the exercises for this section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, now I want you to retain the information that you just saw in the clip so that we can apply it to our lesson today. Okay, we can now look at one or two situations whereby we have to divide fractions. In the first case, we have 2/3 divided by 1/2. I'm going to give you a minute to work on that for me. Okay, if you remember from the clip that you just saw, the rules are you want to leave, change, and flip. In other words, what you want to do is you want to find the reciprocal. Okay, so when dividing fractions, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And what is the reciprocal? Remember, the reciprocal, it's just switching places between the denominator, and the numerator. So the denominator and the numerators switch places when you're finding the reciprocal. So you want to leave the first part of the fraction. In this case, it's 2/3. So 2/3, okay, you're going to leave the 2/3. The next thing you want to do is you want to change the sign. Good job. Here we have division. Remember what the clip said the sign is changed to? Correct. The sign is changed to multiplication. What do we do with the second part of our fraction? Yes, we want to find the reciprocal. And remember, the reciprocal is simply the denominator and the numerators switching place. In other words, you want to put 2 over 1 in this case. So again, you want to leave, change, flip. I want you to use prior knowledge here. Remember when we multiplied fractions? What did we do? Good job. You want to multiply the numerators or the tops, and you want to multiply the denominators, the bottom. Okay, so again, you want to multiply the tops, and then you want to multiply the bottoms. Maintaining your fractions now. So, in this case, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3. So we end up with 4/3, or 4/3. Is that completed? No, it isn't. What do we do when we have, in this case, what we call an improper fraction? Remember from previous lessons as well, an improper fraction is when the top or the numerator is larger than the denominator. What do you do when you have an improper fraction? You want to simplify it. How do you simplify it? You find out how much of the denominator can you get out of the numerator, sorry. Okay, so how many groups of 3's can I get from 4? Good job, 1. That 1 is our whole number. Do we have any remainders? What do you do when you have a remainder? You want to put it over the denominator. Okay, so our answer here is 1, the whole number, and 1/3. Very good. I want you to work out the problem that I have on the screen. And kindly remember the rules when dividing fractions. Remember the rules. You want to leave, you want to change, and you want to flip or find the reciprocal. So you want to leave, change, and find the reciprocal or flip. So you're going to leave the first part of that fraction. You're going to change the sign to multiply. Good. Then you want to flip the second part of the fraction, or again, find the reciprocal. Ready? Leave 2/11. Change the division sign to multiplication. Flip 1/5. That becomes, good job, 5/1. What do you do when you reach this point? Again, you want to apply the knowledge, or your knowledge rather, of multiplication. So when you multiply in fractions, what do you do? Again, you want to multiply your numerators together. Then you want to multiply your denominators together. In this case, we have 2 times 5 as our numerators being multiplied, which will give us 10. Then we have our bottoms, our denominators that we must multiply. In this case, 11 times 1 is 11. Good job. So we end up with 10/11. That's a proper fraction. So we can move on. I have now a problem whereby you have mixed fractions. Okay? And again, I want you to bring in prior knowledge from previous lessons, also what I would have said earlier in this lesson. When you have mixed fractions, what do you do with them? Good job. You want to change the mixed fractions to improper fractions. And remember how that is done. You want to multiply your whole numbers by your denominators and add your numerators. Okay, so give you a second to look at it. Okay, so we have, and I want you to focus on the numbers because the words on the right-hand side of the screens, they're just the steps. So don't focus on that too much right now. Focus on the numbers. So we have 1 and 4 over 9 being divided by 2 and 3 over 5. 1 times 9 is 9, add 4 is 13, and remember, you want to keep the denominator for that part of the fraction, or that part, in this case, the mixed fraction. So we end up with 13 over 9. Okay? Next, you have the 2 and 3/5. What do you do with it? Again, you want to change the mixed fraction to improper fraction. Again, that's done by multiplying the whole number, in this case, it's 2, by the, good job, by the denominator, in this case, it's 5. So 2 times 5 is 10, add 3, it's, good job, 13, and we keep the denominator for that part of the fraction. In this case, it's 5. Okay, once you would have, jumping the gun, let's go back. Okay, so now again, focus on the left-hand side of your screen. 13 over 9, you're being asked to divide that by 13 over 5. Follow the rules of dividing fractions. You leave or you keep the first part of the fraction. In this case, 10 over 9. You want to change the sign, division to multiplication. Then you want to flip the second part of that fraction or find its reciprocal. Okay. Here we have a problem that involves mixed fractions. If you notice on your slide, we have 1 and 4 over 9, and you're being asked to divide that by 2 and 3/5. Remember what I said in previous lessons. Whenever you have mixed fractions, you want to change the mixed fractions to improper fractions before you work on the problem. And how is that done? It's done by multiplying the whole number by the denominators and adding the numerators. In this case, we have 1 as our whole number in the first instance. So 1 multiplied by 9, add 4, we get 13. Also recall what you're going to do with the denominator for that part of the fraction. Yes, good job. You're going to keep the denominator. So 13 over 9 is the first part of my fraction now. Let's look at the second part of the fraction. Sorry, we have a mixed number, 2 and 3/5. How do you change that mixed fraction to an improper fraction? Yes, you want to multiply the whole number by the denominator and add the numerator. Good job. So 2 times 5, add 3 is 13. And how do I know what my denominator for this part of the fraction is going to be? By looking at the denominator for the mixed fraction. Okay, so again, you want to keep the same denominator for that part of the fraction. Now we have 13 over 9 divided by 13 over 5. At this point, I want you to follow and implement, or apply rather, your knowledge of dividing fractions. You want to leave, change, flip. Again, what am I leaving, or what am I keeping? I'm keeping the first part of the fraction. In this case, it's 13 over 9. So we get to keep that. Next, I'm going to change something. What do I change? I'm going to change my sign, my division sign. What does it come? What does it become? It is changed into multiplication. So the division sign becomes multiplication. What do you do with the second part of the fraction? Again, you want to flip it or find its reciprocal. And recall what the reciprocal means. Finding the reciprocal is simply switching places with the denominators and the numerator. Okay, in this case, we have 13 over 5. When we find the reciprocal of 13 over 5, that becomes, good, 5 over 13. Once you would have reached this part of the problem, you want to use your prior knowledge on multiplying fractions. Okay, so here we have 13 over 9 times 5 over 13. Again, when multiplying fractions, what did we do? Good job. We multiplied our tops together, then we multiplied our bottoms together. Okay, so 13 times 5 gives us 65. 9 times 13 is 117. Again, you want to ask yourself, is that completed? Is my problem completed? No, it's not, because I see whereby I can simplify that further. Okay, so we have 65 over 117. Okay, you find a number that goes equally into both the numerator and the denominator. In this case, that number will be 13. Okay, so 13 goes into 65. How many times? 5 times. 13 also goes into 117 9 times. Okay. Again, you want to look at your fraction. Are we done? Yes, we are. Moving right along. We have recapped how to multiply fractions. We learned how to find the reciprocal. Again, the reciprocal, simply switching places with the denominators. We have learned to divide fractions using the leave, change, flip rule, if you recall. Good job. I hope and trust that everyone is still with me at this point. I want you to try the 3 questions that I have on the screen. So I'm going to try them with you, and I'm going to give you some time to work on them. And remember, when you hear the music, you have 1 minute left. So let's go. Okay, let's see what we have here. Number one, we have 1 over 4 divided by 2/5. Secondly, 6/7 divided by 3 over 4, or 3/4. And we have a mixed fraction or mixed fractions. 1/2, 1 and 1/2, sorry, divided by 2 and 5/6. Okay, so let's investigate some of the answers. And of course, as usual, you can compare your answers with mine and see where you would have made a mistake. First, we have 1/4 divided by 2/5. Remember the rules of division or dividing multiples? Sorry, dividing fractions, rather. It's 1, in this case, 1 times 5 over, 1/4 multiplied by 5/5. How did we get that? How did you get 1/4 times 5/5? One-fourth, we keep the first part of the fraction, okay? Follow with me. You're going to change the sign from division to multiplication. And for the 2/5, you're going to find the reciprocal, okay? So it becomes 5 over 2. Then you want to apply your knowledge of multiplying fractions. In this case, 1 times 5 is 5, and 4 times 2 is 8. Secondly, we have 6 over 7 divided by 3/4. Again, you want to apply the rules of dividing fractions. You want to keep the first part of the fraction. You want to change the division sign to multiplication. Then you want to find the reciprocal of the second part of the fraction. Then you apply your rules, okay, or the rules rather, of multiplying fractions. 6 times 4, 24. And 7 threes is 21. So we end up with 24 over 21. Okay, I have a little typo on the screen. Nonetheless, 24 over 21. Okay, what do you do with that? Okay, that can be simplified because it's a improper fraction. Okay, how many groups of 21 can I get out of 24? One group. And a remainder 3. What do you do with the remainder 3? You want to put it over the denominator. Okay, good job. Pardon my typo. Moving on to the next problem. We have 1 and 1/2 divide 2 and 5/6. Okay, what do you do in this case? You want to change the mixed fraction to an improper fraction. 1 times 2 is 2. Add 1 is 3. Follow on the next line. 1 times 2 is 2. Add 1 is 3 over. We keep the denominator. Okay? That's being divided by 2 times 6 is 12. Add 5. We have 17 over 6. Again, we keep the denominator. So now we have 3 over 2. We change our division signs to multiplication times. We find the reciprocal of the last part of the fraction. In this case, 17 over 6 becomes 6 over 17. Good. Then you want to apply the rules of multiplying fractions. So we have 3 times 6 being 18, 2 times 17, 34. Ask yourself, am I done here? Can that be simplified? Yes, it can be. Okay, so again, you want to find a number that divides equally into both numerators and denominator. In this case, it's 2. 2 can go into 18 9 times, and 2 can go into 34 17 times. Okay, that wraps up our lesson for today. And again, any questions or concerns you may have concerning the lesson, you can put those in the Q&A chat, and a responder will be there to answer you. Also, you can get worksheets and past papers on our website. See you next time.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the virtual school orientation for new students. I hope that this session will be informative for you and you would enjoy and learn as much as you possibly can. I'm Ms. Johnson and I'm going to be your facilitator this morning. Now, one of the things we want to focus on is you actually being a student in the virtual environment. It's very exciting and it's very different from the actual physical classroom. So we want to walk you through a few steps that you can use that will guide you as you learn to be a virtual student. All right, so here we have the actual website that you will be using, whether you are a student who will be using the live class options. And the live classes mean you're going to go into a virtual room, you will have a teacher who is actually teaching at that particular moment, and then you have the on-demand students, and you will also have the option to have access to all of the resources, YouTube videos, various links and notes and assignments that have been posted by your teachers. And so once again, you would have to know whether or not I am a live class student or an on-demand student. Either way, on this website, you will have the option to have access to everything that we would have posted for you. So if you are a primary, preschool, secondary student, you have the option to go to any one of these links. Let's say we are in grade 12. And so you would have seen the schedule that we have here. And so they have, for example, period 1, you have the virtual learning orientation. And then for period 2, which starts at 10 o'clock, you have biology. They have the topic there for you. Period 3, 11 o'clock to 11:55, you have mathematics. They have the topics there for you, and so on and so forth. It's very detailed for you. It has the objectives of the lesson, and then it also has your learning resources, the lesson resources, whether that's a video or a PowerPoint or a worksheet. Now, one of the things I want to advise you about is if you are going to be a virtual student, there are a few tools that you need to make sure and ensure that you have. And so one of those things, first of all, is internet connection. You want to make sure that you are connected where you're not dropping off during a class, or If you are trying to get into a live classroom, you are not denied access. So you want to make sure you have a strong internet connection. Secondly, maybe you may not have a laptop or a desktop. You may have a phone that you're using or a tablet that you're using. Now, if you're using any one of those devices, you want to make sure that you are able to download the any app that would allow you to access or open Word documents, PowerPoints, or any PDF that your teachers might have sent or put up on the website for you. So those things you want to make sure are in place. One, internet connection, and secondly, whatever device that you have, ensure that you have access to any one of the apps that will allow you to open up any of the resources the teachers would have placed on the website for you for your learning experience. And so, one of the things that I also want to encourage you to do is to be disciplined enough to actually follow anything that your students, not your students, your teachers rather, would have put up on the website. Also, you want to make sure and check your emails. Discipline is very important as a student or being a student in the virtual environment. Not everything in the physical school where you have a teacher who is constantly saying, make sure and check your homework, make sure you did the assignments. A lot of the responsibility is going to be on you as a student. So you want to make sure that you are disciplined enough to check your emails as much as possible to see if they have sent any notes, any assignments, anything that you might have to do pre the classes that you will be joining in the virtual school, as well as completing assignments. It's not going to be where you're actually physically writing on a paper and then coming to school and turning that paper in. You want to make sure that whatever tools they would have used, whatever resources they would have used to give you that homework and assignment, you are able to attach the assignment in an email if that's where they're using. If they're using an educational platform, for instance, at Modo, you want to learn how to now submit those assignments. So aside from the virtual learning and the website, maybe you want to take 1 or 2 moments and just look up a YouTube video on how to attach an email or how to attach and submit an assignment for any one of the educational platforms that your teacher might be using. And so, one of the advantages that being a virtual student in the virtual school, whether you're in a live class or on demand, is the wealth of knowledge that you have access to, the wealth of resources that you'll have access to. And so you want to make sure that you tap into that, use everything that the teachers would have put up for you, whether it's worksheets, whether it's videos or PowerPoints. And then you even have the option, I want to learn more. I want to see what else I can actually do. And we're going to have an option for you on the website for frequently asked questions. So if you're not sure on what it is that you have to do, whether it's in terms of getting into your class, whether it's in terms of accessing your resources, or even simply you want to ask your teacher a question, you want to be able to post that, and we want to make sure that we're able to answer those questions for you as accurately as possible. And so here in the virtual school, we love what we do. The teachers are exceptional. They're excited about everything that they are doing, and they make sure that what they're presenting to you is accurate and current and something that you can relate to as well. And so you will notice that a lot of your peers would want to know why would I want to be a part of the virtual school? And simply because it gives you access from anywhere. You can be at home, you can be in your car, you could be working from another center. It doesn't matter, but it gives you access to a whole lot more than just sitting in a physical classroom